recognize the member for Oshawa.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I am very pleased to be able to speak today on this motion, because certainly anything that we could do as a legislature to make our roadways safer, the workers and families who travel on our roads safer, is something that not only we should be talking about, but we should look forward to seeing government action on. This is something that I think we are unified in wanting our roadways to be safer, and so I am pleased to offer my comments today and offer some additional suggestions to flesh out this motion in front of us. So the motion reads that the Government of Ontario should take action to keep our roads and communities safe by increasing penalties for stunt driving and other dangerous offences under the Highway Traffic Act. So, Speaker, just so that everyone is reminded, there are two pieces of legislation before this House that at any time, if the government is serious about making changes when it comes to safety, they can pick up these two pieces of legislation. They are not insignificant in terms of their impact, but they are fairly uncomplicated that they could incorporate them into government legislation at any time. One being my own bill, Bill 122, the Fairness for Road Users Act, contraventions causing death or serious bodily harm. There are thousands and thousands of stakeholders, the bikers' rights organizations, folks from across the province who have requested not just my bill, mine is a newer version of a bill that has been tabled a few times, to give judges the opportunity to have stiffer penalties should someone be significantly harmed or killed through something that is like an improper left turn. Right now it's a slap on the wrist, and the families who are left struggling and suffering have no closure whatsoever. So it is something that I'd ask the government to take a look at. I've asked the government, and they say, oh, we're looking forward to debate. Well, Speaker, you and I both know that there are many good ideas on this side of the House or on that side of the House that could very easily be incorporated into government legislation. That's one. Please consider that, especially as we're seeing, if you are sincerely honest, or sorry, I know you're honest always, otherwise it'd be unparliamentary, but if you're sincere in wanting to make these changes, that's another one. Additionally, Bill 62, as put forward by my colleague from University Rosedale, again, to protect vulnerable road users. We don't want people damaged, hurt, killed, or endangered on the roadways. So there are a few suggestions. I may revisit that in a moment, but I'm going to stick to this conversation because I'm very, very appreciative to have it. This is about stunt driving, and first of all, I'm going to say I hate that it's called that. I take the member's point. The member from Mississauga-Streetsville said that people who are, charged with stunt driving should be very regretful, that they should. This shouldn't be a badge of honor. But the term stunt driving, Speaker, I think Hollywood. And that, I think that has to change, whether we call it jerk driving or idiot driving or dangerous driving or reckless driving. I don't have an appropriate name for it, but it is purposefully getting behind a wheel to act like an idiot and to endanger people. They don't care who they are. They don't seem to care the repercussions. So stunt driving, just, I think of a little bit of Hollywood, and if you told someone that you were pulled over or that you were charged with drunk driving, impaired driving, drugged driving, there's quite a stigma there, and that's because there's been so much education, I think, not just the harm that comes with that, but also the stigma of the education campaigns. We have our work cut out for us when it comes to this type of driving, whether we call it aggressive driving or something like that, I don't know. But, calling it stunt driving makes it seem kind of fun, and I hate that. So another thing I would encourage the government to stop doing, or to stop course right now, this government is going ahead, Speaker, like pedal to the metal, full speed ahead on their speed pilot. Right now, during a pandemic where we see changing traffic patterns, we know that the numbers are going to be skewed. You have fewer people on the road. So as you're doing your measures with the speed pilots, I worry about what that will yield and why. Who on earth is driving this speed pilot to increase the speed limit? So if we're going to stand in this House and talk about how speed kills and thank our police officers who are doing their best to keep on top of this. If we're going to thank our first responders who are first on the scene with the havoc and the trauma that results from high-speed impact collisions, ask the folks at the hospitals, ask the folks in the trauma departments who know that just an incremental increase in speed yields terrible results in their space. Catastrophic injury, Speaker, is a lifelong journey if someone survives for the family. It destroys lives, that of the family, not to mention the health care and home care required. So as this government, in one hand, is saying we want to reduce speeds, we want to target those who would, who would be reckless on our roads, and on the other hand, you've got someone in a back room somewhere saying, let's increase the speeds. That seems like a good idea. Like, let's figure that out, because now is not the time for that, nor would I argue is it ever. Speaker, if we're going to bring forward meaningful legislation, and I'm not diminishing this motion, but this is a motion. So what we'd like to see, and I'm sure the members talked about this, calling on the government to take action. So if a government's going to bring forward legislation, I think that at the roadside repercussions, the administrative things at the roadside, a 7-day impoundment or a 7-day license suspension, fine, whatever. Why aren't we making that longer? Like, let's make this a deterrent. I don't want to hear about second and third time offenders. Let's have that graduated penalty where it gets worse each time they do it. And this is, my understanding is 90% of the charges, and the government can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I've understood from stakeholders, 90% of those, they get pled out. There's a plea bargain. Well, that doesn't happen with impaired. Why on earth does it happen with this stunt driving? So let's look at administrative penalties rather than the judicial review. It's worth a conversation. Also, people act like idiots in parking lots too, and interestingly, the legislation only has to do with public roadways. There's an interesting conversation. Let's talk to the police about where on earth people are putting others in danger, and let's get them. Vision Zero, our partners at the Ontario Good Roads Association, they talk about Vision Zero. We all need that kind of strategy. In Durham, we are one of the cities or one of the regions that has a strategic road action safety plan specific to aggressive driving. Let's talk about having those kind of plans across the province. Again, I've already mentioned effective education. Let's do that. Stunt driving shouldn't be hot, shouldn't be fun, like you think of stunt driving, you think of neon, you think of, like I can't even imagine how much money the Fast and Furious franchise is worth. But let's make it something that is not what young people want to do. And Ontario has some of the lowest fines for speeding in Canada. Why? They should be higher. This government has the pedal to the metal to get their speed increases rammed through. However, this is a chance for us to do the right thing. So, Speaker, I have not left that much time for my colleagues, so I am going to sit down, though there's lots more to say, and I'm very glad that we're having this conversation. Our roadways need to be safer. Thank you.